Welcome back post the lunch. I am having with me Kabir, Ramesh, Mahip, and Siddharth. So currently we are, okay, before to that, how many of you have not used mobile in last 5 minutes? If you can raise your hands. Okay, only 4 people have not used mobile, but remaining all whoever are there in the auditorium, they have used mobile. So bringing mobile to the marketing ecosystem, our day-to-day interaction with the apps are increasing with every passing minute, that I would say. Marketers are currently facing the kind of challenges that is being prevailing with the app, accommodating app into our overall marketing ecosystem, and that is actually bringing in more of the biggest challenge currently the domain marketing is facing is attributions. So keeping that in mind, my first question to straightway coming to Mahip, what do you think from a brand perspective wherein you are investing tons of money in terms of channels, various channels wherein app is one of the channels, what kind of attributional challenges that you are facing currently in terms of from a brand point of view?
See, I think on attribution, we are not facing like much of a challenges because we use a platform called AppsFlyer, and I think that's working pretty well for us. More or less, I would say for us, the main challenges essentially is to how do you choose what source of traffic you want, to acquire new customers when you want to really spend more, right? And today, I think with your standard Google AdWords and Facebook, I think the challenge essentially comes in when you go out and choose ad networks because the volumes essentially lies there. But you have to be very conscious that when you're doing these, your end KPI goals, what essentially is coming to you and how does it look, right? So it is, I would say it is not only one source of traffic, but I think the end point is what is that install doing to you? Is your end KPI meeting? And I think we can discuss further stating that what do you look at it, right? When, let's say, your goal is an order, or let's say for us, right, the goal is to get one sale from that publisher.
Right.
How it is, how we are tracking it, and how important it is for you, to look at it at every day, and how analytics, help plays a key role, right? So yeah.
So when you say analytics, so what kind of analytical support that you are currently having in your current requirement in terms of the mobile app ecosystem?
See, we use mostly third-party tracking tools, right? For tracking attribution and looking at different parameters on attribution, we use AppsFlyer. We also use a lot of fraud detection system, which helps us identifying frauds while, it comes to the source of traffic which comes in. If you ask me, for traffic, we use Localytics, right? To track your competition, we use App Any. For engagement, as in push notification, we track MoEngage, right? There's an internal analytical tool that is built on that so that we can see the second layer of the data which comes into it. So there are like n number of tools which I can probably take names, but yes, these are the essentially major tools that you would look at abroad, looking at your traffic sources, retention, and attribution. Yeah.
Okay. From there, when you say various kinds of tools and every organization is trying to invest money into have their own analytics engine. So wherein people like Ramesh are coming into the picture. So Ramesh, when you are providing your solution in terms of someone to develop the analytics bandwidth in an organization, what kind of support that you bring in?
Hi everyone, let me introduce myself first. My name is Ramesh. We are launching an analytics solution for mobile and web specifically. It's called Unliche. So let me answer your question. So what we observe is that a lot of companies are releasing their mobile applications, releasing digital products into the market. But the challenge that they face is that it's very hard to sort of understand and analyze consumption patterns, user behavior patterns. It's very hard for people to understand what a customer is doing and how that behavior can be driven towards a ROI measurement. And then we also notice that that a lot of customers are also having a lot of trouble in maintaining their customer loyalty, as they call retention, right? So with Unleash, what our attempt is to be able to provide become a tripartite enabler, where we have app developers on one side, we have publishers and publishing channels on the other, and analytics forming the third layer, which is probably, I wouldn't say the final frontier, but definitely a very formidable frontier, which provides them visually actionable insights so that they're able to, exactly solve these challenges which I was just mentioning and Mahip was mentioning as well.
In terms of challenges, so Kabir, you are from the consulting background. When you go to a client and the client explains the challenges, what kind of solutions that you bring into the table with what kind of advices that you provide in terms of mobile analytics or analytics as a whole to the organization?
Hi, let me introduce myself first. I'm Kabir. I work for Mcsaatchi Mobile. It's probably one of the biggest mobile first agencies in the world. I handle the India and Southeast Asia business for them. To your point, I think one of the key things to understand is analytics is a really big topic for us to cover in like a half-an-hour discussion, because obviously there are different sides of analytics. There is attribution, where there are players like AppsFlyer, Tune, Adjust. There is the CRM side, which is the likes of Lean Plum and AppBoy and these kind of platforms which help you to send push messages or EDMs. And then there is the app usage analytics, where you come on the Google Analytics and Flurry side, mixed panel side, right? Which helps you to understand user behavior inside the app and change your UI, UX according to that. And then obviously, we've seen very recently that there are fraud detection kind of analytics platforms as well, which are kind of concentrating on that front. So it is a very wide field right now. So as an agency, we kind of consult our clients to be able to help build CRM and use their data in the best format, because obviously there are so many streams of data, and there's a lot of talk about big data these days, about being able to get tons and GBs and TBs of data together. On our side, we actually talk about smart data. You don't need all the data streams. You just need to pick up the exact points, which are the primary points, which actually lead you to user engagement, and be able to actually confine to that. So we are, as an agency, we support smart data instead of big data. Yeah. So.
Okay, so smart data versus big data. When we are talking of data, Siddharth, the kind of solution that you have just started providing to organizations or brands precisely. So what you see where, how you are helping out with your overall brand proposition or the solution proposition that you are bringing to the table?
Hi everyone, I'm Siddharth Desai. I'm just quickly introducing myself. I'm a co-founder at Cleanslate Technologies. At Cleanslate, we're building an indoor positioning solution. So everybody here is familiar with Bluetooth beacons, which were started by Google, the foundation of which was started by Google and Apple. So we are developing a new technology, or we've developed a new technology which can enable locating people and assets in indoor spaces without installing any kind of hardware, like beacons or Wi-Fi or LED fixtures or what may you. So just to get back to the question, with the advent of hyper-local applications and smart retail like Amazon Go or smart industry like Industry 4.0, everybody wants to leverage data into physical operations. So I'll just give you one of the examples. We are working with a reservation platform, a mobile reservation platform in Delhi, whereby you can pretty much reserve tables through your app for restaurants. The key challenges that they are facing is, how do I know if the person who's booked a table through my app has turned up to the restaurant or not? How do I close this gap between the action taken by a user onto your application, and how does it translate into user action into the physical world where people spend 90% of the time? So this is where our solution comes in, and we help plug that gap or bridge that gap between the real world and the digital or the virtual world. So that is the gap that we are hoping to plug.
Okay. I will say one of my problem that I am facing currently. We are into the fiercely competitive market. We are competing with some of the biggies in cities like New York, Boston, and Chicago, wherein the data that we are looking for, we are actually expecting it in real time. Because if you are not getting it in real time, as we are having a discussion earlier, also Mahip, you would also be agreeing to that. How relevant would be analytics in terms of understanding the real data and then getting the insights through the analytics? So to face the real time insights, what kind of support that Ramesh you would provide, and what kind of real insights that you gather up from this Mahip?
So for the real-time support, I think most of the data falls us in a real time, right? If there's a transaction which is happening, the event is essentially fired from the backend, and we capture it, let's say in AppsFlyer, and you can really read it, right? How does that work? Is there is obviously a tool where you will run your campaigns, right? So for example, maybe it AdWords or a Facebook or even with advertisers, right? You pass a post back, and it really helps you because if the order has been placed, right, you really want to tell everybody saying that, hey, the order has been placed, and this is a kind of a, let's say, a first order or a repeat order. But at the same time, we also reconcile that order, and that's a process that we are going to follow very shortly, where in a week's time, we'll probably push this data twice, and if out of these 10 orders, if let's say 2 of them has been cancelled, the same signal will fly to the post back, and we'll be able to tell the third party saying that we will only pay you for these 2 orders rather than this thing. But yes, I think the real-time data essentially helps you a lot in terms of your daily optimization, and especially when you are spending a lot of money, right? So yeah.
Okay, so Ramesh.
So from our side at Unleash, what we do is we enable likes of Mahip and BigBaskets of the world to basically first define their multi-touch attributions within their applications via an SDK. And once they do that, we allow them to also work with channel partners on the other side so that they're able to define their own channel cohorts. Now, what we observed in the market was that channels is a very loosely used word. So what we believe is that every app, every business out there has their own way of defining their channels. It could be there just because he's Mahip, he likes a few certain kind of channels, right? So marketers are looking to rather personalize their channel segments. So what we look at is give them that capability via the tool, and then also be able to give them scoring models around those channel segments that they have that they have defined, so that they're then able to do something called channel milking and channel throttling. So what that effectively means is that once they work with these channels, over a period of time, it is very well known that any given channel sort of dies down and it stops giving you the KPIs that you're looking for. So then he will have the opportunity to be able to sort of release the throttle on that channel and look at some other channel which he has available, or he can look for newer channels to integrate into the platform as well. So presenting this entire ecosystem with the analytical front end and giving him actionable insights to be able to do this exact action is where we come in.
Okay, cool. So when we are talking of channels, we also are experiencing lots of frauds happening from various channel attributions. So Kabir, to you, this is precisely what kind of measures or what kind of advice that you bring or you give to your brands in terms of detecting or preventing fraud?
So yeah, for detecting fraud,
And how analytics helps with that?
I think ad fraud is one of the biggest challenges right now in the market. There's a lot of talk about it. Players like AppsFlyer, Tune, these guys are trying to actually fight fraud on their own side. In terms of being able to do it, a lot of people hear from ad networks and affiliate networks, and you guys must be seeing click fraud, device fraud, all on a daily basis. One of the few things to actually look at is I think and which basically the kind of data that comes from attribution platforms is to look at time difference between a click and an install. Too low or too high is kind of not correct. Look at the app version which is being downloaded. If your app version is not the current Google Play version, there's something wrong in that. Look at the country that the install is coming from. The likes of AppsFlyer, you can see that on the log install reports. In terms of being able to look at very low retention can point towards an incent traffic. So yeah, these are one of the few things that you should be looking at. But I think the key metric right now to be looking at fraud is the time difference between a click and an install. which is available to us through attribution platforms. On the other side, I think in general as an industry, we have a problem in fighting fraud because there are a lot of thieves, but there are no cops. We have to find the right people in the value chain who will actually define what fraud should be. Our industry is, to an extent, I would say, it's very similar to the antivirus ecosystem, right? There are viruses which are kind of trying to go above antivirus systems and attack computers. And at the same time, there are antiviruses who are trying to, it's a cat and mouse game. In our industry, we have viruses, but we don't have one single body which says we are the antivirus. We have in the entire value chain from an agency to an advertiser to an attribution platform to ad networks, publishers. No one is really incentivized to fight fraud, especially the kind of fraud that eats into organic traffic. So yeah, I think there are too many thieves but no cops.
Okay, so do you think, Mahip, analytics is the cop that will help to prevent or detect and prevent fraud?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think when we started long back, right, our model was specifically on the payout on installs earlier, right? And I think from that time and today, right, when I think the industry has moved towards, payment on your sale, your first orders and all of that, right? But I think the key thing, right, if I go really functional, what we used to do at that point of time also, for attribution, we use AppsFlyer and to all your ad networks, right, you can ask them to pass the site IDs, right? And one thing which Kabir was mentioning, right, that there is a lot of click farming which really happens, right? And it's very easy to identify, even if you do not have a real advanced fraud system, you can look at the number of clicks and number of installs essentially which has happened, right? Your click will be like in lakhs and your installs will be in thousands, right? You really know that there is something wrong which is going with that particular site ID. You can hold the payments and you can probably pause those site IDs immediately, right? That's the first line of thing, right? But with, I think, a couple of I think active fraud modules that we are looking at it with AppsFlyer recently. There is something called your new device ratio which has been introduced, and I think that's very helpful because if I talk about Google and Facebook, right, you can exclude people because you know who are those people who are your customers, right? But to an ad network, if they give me a very really high ratio of these new installs, or let's say new device IDs, right? There's no way for them to really identify that, right? And that means that they are really eating your organic users who has a high intent and their conversion ratios are really well. And if everything goes like really well, there is something wrong, right? And I think these things actively help you save money because you really don't want your organic user to come from a paid source and you pay again some dollars to acquire the same organic users, right? So. Right. I think, these are, I think, the very, very basic things. But we go even, second line where while you analyze and tell them that the site IDs work for you or it doesn't work for you, most of the time the orders would have been placed, but it gets cancelled, at a second point of time. So you should have your own backend analytics also, which should tell you that, if these are the 10 orders or 10 transactions which took place in a day, how many of them been cancelled, and you should be able to put it back to a real analytics tool or a real-time analytics tool, right? At least a couple of times in a week. So.
Okay, cool. Ramesh, on an advanced level, what kind of analytical solutions that you provide to your customers or to your clients to prevent fraud?
I think I tend to agree with Kabir here that, first off, the holy grail that everybody is looking for is fraud protection, whereas everything that anybody can do so far at least is fraud prevention. So from our perspective, we do something to the likes of very similar to what Mahip was mentioning and what Kabir was mentioning. However, what we also do is when we do channel scoring, what we do is we try to attribute channels lower score based on how much of an IP repeat do we see, how much of a device ID repeats do we see, and we allocate lower scores to those channels, by way of which we give an indicator of which channels are more fraud prone and which channels are less fraud prone. This is also, the challenge also goes beyond when we are not just working with affiliate partners, when we are working with let's say an SSP, and if it's a branding, branding campaign, and we're working with a lot of impression traffic that is coming from the other side, it's very hard to clearly say which channel is giving you the fraud. So sometimes what we also suggest to advertisers is to not, put their bid ranges in such a way that they'll be prone to probably get bad traffic or fraud traffic. So those are some ways by which we can control it. But I think I stick to the point that fraud protection is something that we all should participate together and try to come to. But as of now, via analytics, the best that is done is to give improved measures of fraud prevention.
Okay. When we are talking of the future, so recently I attended Gartner IT Symposium, wherein we have discussed in terms of what is the future of mobile analytics. So the experts from Gartner say that 80% of the app players will be investing big in terms of analytics, but 5% will actually use that. So what you guys, so you four or we five think in terms of what is the next step in terms of mobile analytics, or what the future holds for us?
So there are two sides to the future of mobile analytics. One is consolidation and one is specialization. And both are trying to fight with each other. There are attribution partners, there are partners who are, so for each side of analytics, you would be using one partner. So for example, for app usage, you use Google Analytics. For sending EDMs to your CRM database, you will send what is that? MailChimp, sorry. You'll use a MailChimp. For sending push messages, you'll send Lean Plum. For attribution, you'll use AppsFlyer. So on the other side, where Google is trying to actually fight it with you, coming up with Firebase and creating a much more consolidation in the app analytics space, there's also a lot of specialization. Because, for example, on attribution players understand attribution probably more than a player who's trying to consolidate it, right? So there are two sides to it, and both are kind of fighting with each other, I guess. We'll have to see how it goes.
Ramesh.
So to add to his point, I think what I see as the future of analytics, specifically for mobile app marketing, is there is a burning need for marketers to get some sort of predictive solutions to whatever they are doing. So idea being that using analytics and using predictive analytics specifically, if marketers are able to be given a very visual interface of what their next campaign should be, at least give a suggestion of what the recommended platform solution to the current challenge that they have is, that probably is the way forward, is the best way forward to enable this industry further.
Mahip, from a brand point of view, what you think, what the expectation from a brand like yours, what you would expect?
So as I told you that we use any point of time at least around 15, I would say like 10 to 12 tools to measure, right? And it is all different measurement. And reason why you don't build it, because every tool has its own specialization and you can't really use one tool. But I think if in future, if someone can build a tool where I can at least save time, right, to look at your attribution, use your push notifications, right, look at your regular cohort analysis and everything in a perfect way, I think one tool, and that's a future, I think, and that
cohort
will
is
save.
always a teething problem for us as well.
Sure.
So I hope you will agree to that.
Yeah, 100%. So I think we need one tool, right? Or at least I would say 2 or 3 tools which should suffice the purpose of, of a marketer to look at it. I think that saves a lot of time, right? You really don't want to pull your attribution data and, put it internally in your internal analytics and tell them that, boss, you got this 100 orders, now what happens to this, right? I think I want to look at it in a similar dashboard. The dashboards are available, but I think it's not very exhaustive and it's not customizable as per the business needs. So I think that is something which I would think that if there can be a tool probably in few years which could be developed, I think that would be a real help to all the marketers. Yeah.
Siddharth, for Cleanslate, what the future of analytics is that you expect?
Yes. So I think location as a primary variable to understand people's context is going to permeate a lot more sectors, a lot more industries than just hyperlocal applications or O2O applications. Your the fact that you've spent 30 minutes over here or 20 minutes over here tells me a lot more about you as opposed to, understanding your online behavior. Yeah. So that location intelligence is going to be built into a whole lot of applications that we haven't even thought of. And GPS is surprisingly inaccurate as a means for us to understand that because it works outside. So that is why we see a very bright future for indoor location data to be powering a whole lot of intelligence engines for applications in the future.
Okay. So when we are talking of real-time data, Ramesh, so what kind of integration that you think from a hyper-local based data that if Cleanslate or maybe Cleanslate provides, and what kind of analytical support that you can integrate to provide us real-time insights?
I think the best case scenario that I can imagine for Cleanslate specifically is that the challenge is always the last click challenge. And the attribution is so much dependent on that last click challenge. So, so for somebody like Cleanslate, if they are able to precisely, without using beacon technology, be able to attribute the last click to the right source, and if that is posted back to our platform via a postback, then that becomes a conduit for us to be able to report that much more in real time to the marketer.
Okay. Any point that you want to share?
I'll just like to add an example of best practice in app analytics. And I think I'll give you a very real-time example, a real-world example actually. So it's actually nothing to do with apps. It is, so like probably 15 years ago, there was one Kirana shop right next to my house. It was called Babu Bhai. And my mom always used to go and get her groceries from there. One day he started this calling service that you could call him and you can order. So one Sunday my mom calls for like 15 groceries. Next Sunday she calls again and calls for 17 groceries. The third Sunday he would just basically, he would already be ready with the order and he would know exactly what my mom wants and he would be like, okay, do you want those 15 and should I add a couple of more there? That is the kind of analytics that we need on our apps, right? That's the kind of customization that we need to give to our users. And I would say every advertiser has to become a Babu Bhai. So yeah, that's pretty much.
I have a small point to add, right? So like what Kabir said, it actually exists on our app. And if you use BigBasket, right, we have something called a smart basket. Now, this is like, this is the same Babu Bhai which sits in our app, right? And and I would say that if you are a new user, right, we have our own recommended engine which will tell you that these are the things for the day that you might need. But if you use it over a period of time, there's a smart basket which you can really go and check out, and it takes like a minute for you to really do a grocery shopping without a need. So I would suggest please be a big basketer if you are in it. Yeah.
Cool. So I think mobile analytics not only need to be working in silos, I think it can be integrated with the overall marketing strategy. And I think the kind of insights that is bringing in, say for example, a brand like us, wherein 85% of our business is coming through mobile apps. So I think it needs to be integrated, not only our business, all of you guys also would agree that it has to be integrated with the overall marketing strategy. So to conclude, I think we need to give some 2 or 3 questions we can take up from the audience. Yeah. What do you say? Yeah? Okay. Any question from the audience?
Unfortunately, we only have time for one. I'm sorry.
Okay. One question from the audience.
From the audience.
No, I think all answers.
I think
There is one hand at the back, I think.
Diverse range of perspectives. Yes, we have a question right at the back. Can we have a hand mic in the last row, please? Do we have a hand mic that can be sent to the last row? Okay, can you just shout out your, can you stand up and shout out your question and I'll try to relay it for you. Okay.
It must be.
We've got a mic for you now. Thank you.
Hello. Hi, myself Abhishek. I have a question for Siddharth. Okay. So you are saying that you are working on the Indo navigation system, which are the problem you are getting right now. So you are not using any hardware for this. So can you tell me in short that what are the things you're using to achieve this thing? Because without using a hardware or beacon.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I'll just very briefly give you an overview and let's take it
very
outside
brief.
because I think we're out of time. So indoor positioning or any kind of positioning systems is all about signal processing. You either use Bluetooth signals or Wi-Fi signals or light signals or some of the other signals. We use something which is naturally available and that absolves us for the need to install any hardware. So what we use is magnetic fields of indoor venues, which are naturally available everywhere. So this is 7th standard physics, right? So there's a vector coming, a magnetic field vector coming from at every point. And then on the smartphone side, we use a bunch of sensors, your inertial sensors like your accelerometer, your magnetometer. And using advanced sensor fusion and machine learning techniques, we're able to have that correlation, a one-to-one mapping between the magnetic field and the piece of real estate we're predicting where you are supposed to be.
So for that also you want a hardware, no? Right, for sensor fusion. So you are saying
All the hardware that we need is available in your smartphone. We don't need any external hardware.
that I know, man. You need the smartphone for doing
Of
this
course,
fusion.
Of course.
All right. Thanks, Abhishek.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. And may I invite on stage Venkatesh to please come and give away the mementos. All right. Mercy, may I invite you to please come on stage and give away the mementos. I request the panelists and the moderator to please remain on stage for a moment. A diverse set of perspectives there on how to leverage analytics for mobile app marketing. Please put your hands together for our moderator Aroon, Kumar, and our panelists Kabir, Chaudhary, Mahip from BigBasket, Ramesh, Nistala, and Siddharth, Desai. If you're tweeting or sharing online about insights from this session or questions for the speakers, the hashtag is GMASA, and you can tag the GMASA Twitter account, which is @the_GMASA. Thank you, gentlemen. And may I request a group photograph? Mercy, why don't you join in? Why don't you do a selfie with the audience in it?